I'm Vidar Elven. I work at the cloud partner in Norway called Evidi. So my focus areas is security for one part. I'm a security MVP, and I also work a lot with the cloud platform. Mainly that's Azure, or almost exclusively in my case. So I'm going to talk to you about how you can build your own Copilot. Let's see if I can just find the right way to skip to the next slide here. There we are. So this could be a good idea to take a picture of, but also I will include that link in the, at the end, so you have another opportunity there. But if you want to start your own learning path about some of the stuff I'm going to talk about today, it's a very good idea to go into that AKMS link there. Something called Generative AI for Beginners, which is a GitHub repository. And it includes a lot of resources you can use to start your journey on building OpenAI solutions. And the next thing I wanted to show you is that Azure Open AI service is now available for you to use, but you have to request it first. So if you have an Azure subscription, you have to enable that Azure subscription for OpenAI, because other than that, you cannot start deploying any resources. And that can take a while, a few days, for example, maybe even more. But it's a good idea to plan ahead if you really want to start exploring some of this. So that's the starting links. And I will just bring you through a couple of slides about generative AI and how that will work and pitch up to the OpenAI and AI services in Azure. And these are some of the slides from that exactly Generative AI for Beginners repository. So if you want to do a presentation on this on yourself inside your company, you can basically take those slides here and present it and have a workshop in your company, for example. It's a good resource. So basically, we are working with language models, large language models, and we have, I guess a lot of you have heard about GPT, right? Show of hands. Yeah, I suspect most of you. So GPT 4.3.5 is of course available also in the AI services in Azure. And we have some other models as well. For example, DALL-E. Anyone heard about DALL-E? The picture generator? Yeah, we have Whisper that we can do with speech. And text embedding, we will talk about that in a little while, but then this is where we can add semantic index and bring meanings to words and relations into our AI services. And a few more. And then we have the open source modules, which also Maxim referred to. So this is our landscape. There's a slight difference in some respects between the open source LLMs and the ones that are proprietary. So when you talk about Azure AI services, those are in the proprietary part. And this is something that you own and you can control access. There's some limited customization, but you can build a lot of stuff around it, but you have to use the model as it's provided to you. Primarily used for production and of course development and test. May require subscriptions or payment based on use and often maintained by model owner. So you have to, basically if you are using Azure AI services, you are dependent on the services provided at that time as time goes by. And the open source LLMs, then they are public available, so everyone can use them. It may be required that you have your own compute power and so on, but you have a lot more flexibility and control of it. So it depends where you are going. Some other differences that could be useful to note. So we have the embedding models, which basically do a number representation of text and provide some meaning to data. So you can, for example, type one word, and if you don't know the correct word, the semantics will make sure that you get the results you need, maybe even with typos and so on. And then we have the text generation models, which basically let us write a prompt, and it will provide us with the text based on what we are asking about. And that's the basis of the GPT. And then we also have, let's see, chat completions, which extends the text completion to have a conversational history. So when you ask something, you can continue to ask about that same, and it will be in that context. So we know that from using GPT, for example. And image generation as another example. So we can use these models exclusively, but often we use them in combination when we build solutions. That's the main thing to take from here. So, AI Studio, which is now in preview, but it's available for use. Before that, we had the Open AI services. So we had a different workspace to create the Open AI services before the AI Studio arrived, but you can basically use both solutions still. Are there anyone that have experience using these? One in the back, Loredana, hi. And a few more hands, yeah. But for most of you, this is quite new, right? Yeah.
We just play with the playground.
The playground, yeah. That's inside there. Yeah. That counts as experience. That's okay. Okay, so we are going to dive into that, and I will do more demos and show you how you can set it up and use it. About Azure then, how many have access to an Azure subscription of you? Or use Azure on a regular basis, yeah? So that's a little bit more of you. And that's important to have access to, because these are Azure services. So you need to deploy something to get this working. And once as we get into the AI Studio, then we can start exploring what modules we want to use. And this is where the proprietary provided services comes into place, because this is decided by Microsoft what models are provided to us and which versions and so on. So we need to work our way around that. So we can even do a suggestion search, or we can type what we want to do or in what region we want to deploy services, and it will suggest what models we can use for us, for example. So it's a range of different usage scenarios to use here. Exploring the models, as I mentioned, you have a module catalog, so you can go in and you can look at available modules, you can do the suggestion, and you can look into the details and see the different versions and so on. So this is part of getting to know the AI services in Azure. And with that, I will head out for starting some demos. Let's see if I'm still in the screen sharing. So, Håkon, can you recheck that when I go now to this screen, is that in the StreamYard now? Or do I need to reshare because I skipped out of the presentation?
Okay, then you need to
reshare?
Yes.
I suspected as much. Let's go. Stop sharing. And then I will go back here. and present, screen, share screen, entire screen, and like that.
Yes.
Good now? Okay. Please remind me when I get into the presentation again, I probably need to do the same trick. Okay. So this is the AI Studio. And as you can see from the top part here, I will do this very basic. I'm logged in as my admin account. So this is my private subscription, my own test Entra directory. So this is, of course, based on the Azure role-based access control module. So being able to get to work here, you need some roles to be, for example, a contributor, or more specifically, you need to be an Azure AI developer role to be able to get this up. So that being said. So the AI Studio, it will show me some starting points. For example, it's very interesting to see that I can go directly into build your own Copilot, which consequently is my topic for today. So let's do that. So first of all, when I start building my own Copilot, I need to specify either an existing or creating a new AI project. And I will talk to you about what a project are in a little while, but I will start a new one, now, because you can see what that process looks like. So you can basically call it what you want. I use naming standard, so I will just call it something like this. And when I have the project, I can then select to either specify an existing resource for my AI hub or create a new AI hub. So this is the first starting point, a project, and then I have to create all my Azure resources together in a hub. So I will do that as a new resource as well. So for example, I can call it AI Hub, Elven, Sec Copilot, AI for 2. And then I need to specify my Azure subscription and a resource group, which will contain the services. So I have a specific resource group already created for that. And then I need to specify a location. And the location part is pretty important because the location will determine what kind of models you can implement. There are restrictions, for example, for Norway East. It's not everything you can deploy in Norway East. There are some limited GPT-4 modules you can have in Norway East, for example. So there are some big Learn articles that will show what kind of models are available in which regions. So I will suggest that you go in and read more about that there. But for example, if I have something called Sweden. Sweden, I know, supports both GPT 3.5 and GPT 4. So there I have some flexibility on that. I also need to specify if I want to create a new Azure Open AI service or not. And this is where we will meet the old configuration, because before we had the AI Studio, we went directly in and created Open AI services as a resource. But now we can do that as part of the project and the hub. So let's create a new one. AI. I will just call it Open AI. Elven. There's some scratching going on there. It's okay with the sound? Yeah. AI for 2. I'm pretty strict on naming standards because it will make it easier for me to clean up after this presentation. And then I can also create a cognitive search instance if I need to index and being able to search and do vectorized searches, for example, on my data. I will skip that for now, and then I will just click next. And now I can start focus on the module. And by selecting Sweden, I've already now will have some restrictions on what kind of modules I can deploy. So as you can see, the GPT Turbo 3.5 version 0301 is not available in Sweden Central. I do, however, have this version available and also this version. I also thought I had 3.5, but I was wrong earlier when I said that. So there's some limitations in Sweden as well, as you will see with Norway East also. I think the regions that are most complete in model support is, for example, France. France Central have a lot of the different modules. But this is something you will learn as you go along. This is also important to consider if you want to add your own data, because you don't want to add a US East location for data that might be sensitive, for example. So this is also important stuff. All right. So I will select GPT-4, and then I have a review, and then I can click to create an AI project. And now all this is resources that will be automatically created for me. And of course, you can also do this by an infrastructure as code deployment, but then you really need to know what you need to deploy. So as you can see here, there's an AI project resource, there's an AI hub resource, there's the actual Azure Open AI service. That's maybe the most important one. There's a storage account, and the storage account is a place where I can place data I want to index and search for when I do chats. There's a log analytics workspace. This is mainly for enabling logging and insights. There's a key vault for taking care of secrets that are needed in credentials and connections. And there are some AI services endpoints. So it will basically run through all this inside a couple of few minutes. So while that works, I want to move to the other end and show a couple of scenarios. And this is where my topic for today was how to build your own security copilot. And has anybody heard about the Microsoft Copilot for Security? It will go launch on April 1st. So that's the official product from Microsoft. It will enable plugins for Entra, Intune, Defender for Cloud, all the Defender solutions really, and much more. So you can have an AI assistant for your security data. But you can also use that, you can build something similar to that for yourself. So this was now finished. And while that, it should be clear to use now, but we will head back to it. And now I want to look into a couple of scenarios. So this is Microsoft Sentinel. Microsoft Sentinel is a Microsoft CM as a service. So you can bring together incident data alerts from different solutions into one common portal. For example, I can see what kind of incidents I have in my test environment. I have a couple of incidents here. Some unfamiliar sign-in properties, which has been detected by Microsoft Entra ID and the protection solution there. So if I go into one of those, I can see that there's some IP address involved. There's probably my user because I was traveling last week and came back to Norway this week. So basically that's what it's saying. And here I can do some actions. For example, I can run a playbook. And a playbook is a logic app that can do automated orchestration and do some my own logic on the security incident. So here I have something called logic app playbook Mitre comment. And if I run that, and this is a logic app I've created from before, and it will take the incident data and it will do a question to OpenAI and ask about what kind of attack techniques have been using here. So if I use another incident like this one, oh, sorry. So this one. If I go into full details for that, you will see that on the side there's a comment that tells me that this security incident is using an initial access threat tactic, and it uses a specific technique, and I can read, if I am a security analyst, I can read myself up on that now. So this is something I've been getting through my own Copilot. And I will show you how. So I just run that same playbook on this incident 101. And if I click to full details on that, you can see that it also have now that comment. So let's see. How did that work? Let's see. There's all this issue when I zoom in on the screen. Here we are. So when there was a new incident, which I run the playbook for, it started getting my incident information in that trigger. And in the next part, I will receive and prepare my prompt. So this is the question I'm going to send to my OpenAI and the chat completion. So I ask it to explain the following Mitre attack techniques and tactics. And this is brought from that specific incident. So based on what kind of incident it is, I can have that as a variable. And in the next phase, it will show me that I will send that as a REST API call to my OpenAI service, and it will return back to me based on my question an output which explains this value. So here it is. This is the explanation. So basically, I'm using this logic to ask GPT. But in my case, I've used my own GPT deployed in OpenAI. So this is one scenario where you can do it. Another thing I do inside my environment is that I run, for every new incident I'm creating, I'm archiving incidents. Let's see, I will do an edit here. So every time a new incident is triggered from Microsoft Sentinel, I will create something called a markdown file. And in that markdown file, I will include the title and description and the severity and status and incident number and more into a file. And then I will place that file, let's see here, into a storage blob as a markdown file. Anybody used markdown files here? Text documents where you can basically write your own data. And this is also a good scenario for having into those kind of scenarios where I do GPT. So every time there is a new incident, I can just put an incident report on a storage blob, and I will index that blob, and now I can use it. So, for example, this is something I have created as a Power App. I've called it My Security Copilot, and this is connected to that GPT service, which I have deployed in Azure Open AI. So if you remember, I had, for example, let's see here, in that Sentinel incident, I have some incidents called 101 and 102. Those are quite recent. And if I go into that Power App, I can ask in some questions. How are you? And then I will get a prompt back. So basically just a nice little hello back. But then I can also instruct that bot to answer more professionally, like a security assistant, for example. But now I will just ask, has there been any recent security, let's see, security incidents like this? And then it will provide me with an answer. Based on the retrieved documents, there have been several recent security incidents. One incident was triggered by a machine learning model that detected anonymous signals and suspicious activities with specific IP and so on. And that's a reference also. So I've been a little bit lazy on the Power App here, but if I could create that reference as a link, and that will actually made it possible for me to click on that and get up the Markdown file. So there's an endless list of possibilities here. So let me change the question a little bit. And what are the incident IDs? Like this. And then we have some references to incident IDs. So with some links and some more, I can have really follow up on and create my own kind of security copilot. And this is just one example of an interface. So how was this possible? I will end with that. When's the next session starting? Is okay? Yeah. So if I'm going back to this service, and this is the one I just deployed, right? This is the one I created in the beginning on my demo. So this is the new AI service I created in a project and as an OpenAI service. And the first thing that I can go into is the playground. And basically in the playground, I have now my own personal GPT. So I can click start chatting. Hey, what day is it? And then I can send that. A little bit limited in the response. So it hasn't really capabilities to provide the current date. So it's based on data that it knows, right? So I can maybe reference some other data services that might include that, but in this case, I will now look into how we can do some customization by this. So first of all, I can instruct the bot to via the system message to tell him what its main task is to do. So I can say that you're an AI assistant that can respond to security incidents and threats. Please refer all answers to the Mitra, let's see, attack knowledge base. So if I save that now, let's see, where's the save button? Apply changes, there it is. So now I can ask a question like, how does attackers get a foothold inside your organization? Yeah. So it basically returns an answer that is based on the system message, because I said that attackers can gain foothold in an organization through several ways. According to the Mitra attack knowledge base, here are some of them: phishing, drive-by downloads, exploiting vulnerabilities, and so on. So it not only can provide me with generic answers, but also refer me to an external source like the Mitra attack knowledge base, if you have heard about that. So this is exciting. I can start bringing in external data by referral and instruct the system assistant. But the last thing I now want to do is to actually add data. So if I go into the playground again, I have a selection there called Add Your Own Data. And if I select Add Your Own Data, I can click one more time, and then I can select what kind of data source do I want to connect to. And you remember from the logic app I showed you, I put all the incidents and I put it as markdown files, and I put it to a storage blob. So here I can just specify that kind of a storage blob. When I created the project, it automatically created a couple of blob storage sources for me, but I can also upload files manually. If you have a company handbook, for example, and you want to, let's see, all the benefits for your, or insurance for your employees, this is a great example. You have them in PDF, upload them here, and then you have an assistant that can answer, how many vacation days can I have? What's the process for sick days, for example. So this is examples you can use. But in this case, I will just specify that I have for example, you put up data in a storage blob, for example. I don't have any data in this, but this is a quite new resource, so it is completely empty. But I will show you how I set up that example I had earlier, which was in the previous deployment. And if I go into chat here and add your own data, I will select Azure Blob Storage, and then I can select some resources. So this is things I have prepared from before. So this is the storage account that put in those, you remember I had these markdown files from the incidents, right? This is where I put them, in that storage account. And I put them in a specific storage container. So this is where I find all those incidents. I have time to show you that, right? Quickly. So if I go into that specific storage account, there we are. And if I click storage browser and blob containers and incidents, so here's all my incidents. You can see them from one and upward. One markdown file for every incident. So this is something I don't need to think about anymore, because I set up an automatic archiving of incident information every time an incident is put into that storage account. So when I go here and specify that exactly same container, I can specify, and I will just do a new index now, incidence AI for 2. And I can also set it to do an hourly index schedule, because if then I receive a new incident in half an hour, it will be indexed inside the next hour. And this is something that will incur cost. And I haven't prepared any vectorized search. This is something more on the AI search side you need to prepare yourself on. So I'll just do a keyword search and then I can save and close. So basically, after it will now do the ingestion, as it says here, I can now start asking it about my incident data. Do I have time for one more little demo? Yeah? So, while that is setting up, I also have set up something called, this is another, let's see, here we are. I have another logic app. Logic apps are great. So I have something called a security report for authentication methods. And if I look into that logic app, I will do, in this case, just a manual request. So every time I start running this logic app, it will connect to Microsoft Graph and to the report API in Microsoft Graph and list all available authentication methods for my users in my company. So basically, I get a report. How many have you using MFA? How many are using passwords? How many are using phone-based SMS, and so on and so on. So basically, this connects to Microsoft Graph. Oops. And the next thing I do is that I parse that data and I go and get out the password methods, the email methods, the mobile phones, and more. And I'm using the same technique. So at the end here, I'm doing a report markdown. So here I have my authentication methods report. And this is also a markdown file where I specify a title, last report of the day, how many users have I in total, how many are MFA capable, how many are passwordless capable, and so on. So I will bring that together as a big numeric report. And that will, for example, show something like this. So I just will show you that example. So here I can see that I have actually getting out a markdown file with numbers and text. And this is something also that I place in that storage account with in another blob container. And if you can see back in this one, when I have created a chat playground and the service, I can click deploy to, and I can choose to deploy to Copilot Studio, which Maxim talked about earlier. So you can set it up in a Teams environment, but you can also deploy to a web app. And this is an example of that web app. Start chatting, it says. How many users are registered for MFA? That's it. Need to wake up. It's a web app. Should be here right away. Hopefully. I might need to do a refresh In fact, it might have been sleeping for a while. But I need to start the session again. Just 1 second here. Okay. Okay, while that's running, I will just do a quick last few slides. So if you're working in a big Azure organization and you have a lot of subscriptions, there's a reference guide for deploying AI services in a landing zone. So I will just leave that there. But it might be that if you are working with AI services, it's not that you can just go into your Azure at your organization and deploy a lot of stuff. You need to have a separate subscription maybe and do it the right way. So I'll just leave that there. And also, by adding your data, you need to be aware of the data format and file types that are supported. So you can search for a text file, markdown files, which is very popular because then you have a lot of flexibility, as I showed you now. HTML, doc, PPTX, and PDF. And there's a link here for supported data sources, so you can look into that yourself. And the resource part, and this is something you might want to take a picture on. This is I've written a blog post which shows you some of the things I showed you now, so you can follow that and set up for yourself. You can either scan that QR code and take a picture. And these are the links for some useful resources, the Generative AI for Beginners resource, and there's also a learn path here for doing learn modules and learning as you go. And connect with me at LinkedIn or X at Vidar Elven. I will be more than happy to accept and answer your questions on AI. And with that, if you have been able to take the picture, I will just check now if we have this refreshed. Yes. How many users are registered for MFA? Yes. According to the latest report out, there are 18 users registered for MFA in the organization. That's pretty cool. I'm way over time. Hope this was useful, gave you some ideas. There's a lot of things to go through, but basically you have great flexibility in using OpenAI and add your own data. Thank you.